me and Sleepy Row tonight. It'll be great. It'll be wonderful, tremendous. Say hi, Sleepy Row.
It's going to be a very, very good time. We've got all even I'm so sleepy, even my camera is like freezing me. So
Right.
Get all the best equipment.
Yeah, the greatest equipment, the greatest people. We've got nothing but the greatest. That's who we are, and I'm very rich. Thanks for joining me.
But we are a felon-free zone for this evening, so that's good.
Unlike that other show. Yeah.
That's right. The damn criminals.
Yeah, right. Oh, and I'm going to keep poking fun at that as much as I want all night. So that's going to be, but not here to actually talk to either of those two clowns. Instead, I'm talking with you, Ro. How you doing?
This clown, just the one as opposed to the two. That's all right. Like having your workload.
Right. I only got one grumpy old man here, not the two. Mike, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. In the chat, of course. So, yeah, man. I want to talk to you about Bald and Balding. You guys have been going for about a year now, which is pretty awesome. I know you like.
We still haven't been picked up by anybody. It's really kind of annoying, but we'll get over that.
What are you gonna get that Spotify deal like Joe Rogan, right?
Right. Yeah.
Come on. Get on it, Spotify. I will say, and I'll say this in front of you and Mike, while we're on air, let every writer I talk to that's been on your show, they're like, oh, those guys are so fun. It's such a good time. And like, oh, I'm going to be on that show. Oh, they're so great. You're going to have a good time, So
I think the key is that we don't prepare for anything, right? So we always ask people, are you a pantser or a plotter, right? And as far as Balding goes, we are pure pantsers.
We are pure pants. That's funny.
It can go anywhere. We have no set destination. We do try to actually ask people about their books every now and then. Sometimes, like tonight, I think it took probably 25 minutes before Mike finally got around to, hey, about your book. We're here to talk about your book.
Your book. When were you guys on? Did you guys start because you guys just did an episode earlier tonight with Tim? Was it at 7 p.m. or was it
at 7? Generally, we try to do it at 7 because Mike and I are very old and we have to go to bed. We eat at 5 like normal, and
get that early bird special. I like it. Very smart.
Get the show done by 8 or so we can get up and get to bed in time enough to be up 3 times to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
That's funny. Go there. Right. With your fake hips and all that, I'm sure.
They're on the way.
Soon.
I'm looking forward to these. I really am.
We're going to talk about that. I also want to talk about, your books. And I guess you've had a long and distinguished career in writing.
Long.
Well, because like it seems to me your entire Air Force career was communications, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I tell a story?
No, that's not what we do here. That's not what this is for. No, sorry. No story.
So, at 18, realizing that I had no money for college and my grades were really not that good, as my daughter, who's sitting next to me here, will joyfully point out that she has seen my senior.
That's funny.
Anyway, a buddy of mine.
Better than you, Dad. That's what she says, right?
The bar was not very high. A buddy of mine who was joining the Air Force gave my number to a recruiter who called me up one day and offered me pizza to come down and talk to him. So at the end of the day, I joined the Air Force for pizza. And I asked him about this job that in the Air Force is called public affairs specialist. And he never mentioned writing at all. He says, oh, you get to get base tours and talk in front of people and go out and do these things. And I said, oh, all those things are very appealing. Okay. Sign me up for that. When you get a position for that, let me know and I'll jump on the bus and we'll go do that.
Yeah. Right.
And they did. And when I got after basic training, you go to tech school and they said, welcome to the basic journalism course. And journalism? What the hell are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, all the Air Force people are like that. But that's what it was. So it was journalism school. so I did weekly newspapers in the Air Force for like the first 14 years or so. And I did tours and talked in front of people and all that other nonsense too. And so yeah, it was a really good introduction to writing. My first boss at my first base, there were two guys I worked with. My first assignment when I got there was to go to the base library and if I hadn't read them before, which I hadn't, go read the electric Kool-Aid acid test and a Hunter S. Thompson book. I forget which book it was. I've known this. I just forgot the name of it.
All right, the only one I know is Fear and Loathing.
That's it. Yeah, Fear and Loathing.
Yeah.
So I had to go read those two books. That was my first thing I had to do in the Air Force. The first thing I was told I had to go do. And that pretty much set the stage for it. And the guy I worked with, who was the editor of the paper my first year, he didn't speak to me for like the first 2 weeks. I was in the service. He would just sit there. This is back in the day when you could smoke. In the 80s, you could still smoke in the office. He'd sit there with a cup of coffee and a cigarette and just kind of stare out the window, right? And he did that a lot. And finally, one day he looks over at me and goes, "You get beat up a lot?" And we became very good friends. We worked together at another base overseas a few years later. But yeah, so I did that for a long time, and then finally retired from doing that in 2012. And then stayed in communications and had some GI Bill money left, and thought I'd pick up a degree in creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get this book out of my head that's been floating around in there for a number of years. And in 2018, that book came out. And I'm sorry my camera is doing this. I don't know why.
I was just asking the chat if it was just, I don't know. It's okay. The good news is like can hear you like really, really smooth. No, but
none of the channel is taken up with video. That's why, because it's always frozen. No worries.
Yeah. If you had a smooth video, Spotify would be banging your door. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all right. That's pretty wild, man. That's a pretty expensive pizza. You know, that pizza ended up costing you what, 20 years? You know?
Nah, 25. But it's actually really good now because I keep getting paid every month to wake up. So it's all right.
Yeah, that part is pretty sweet. It
really is. Yeah. The the moving around every 3 years kind of it's kind of boring. Going to I mean, I can't complain about the places I've been to. I've never been anywhere where someone was actively trying to kill me with a weapon. But you go to some places and that aren't very nice and whatever. It's all good.
Yeah. I like your distinction of no one was actively trying to kill you with a weapon, which seems to imply that people were trying to kill you with something else.
I've been married for a long time. I mean,
right. Rolling pin? No.
What's that? Yeah,
rolling pin.
A variety of things that I'm sure have been, if not actually thrown my way, at least thought to be thrown my way.
That's funny.
I'm sure my kids probably have a couple of things too, but
right.
No.
Well, she says, no, of course not. No, never.
No, Dad's going to leave me everything when he dies. Of course not. Half of everything. You can have the IP to my books. Yay!
Yay! So, you were with the Air Force for a long time. Was there any particular piece of work you did while you were there? Any particular story that really sort of stands out among others?
Probably not that I want to admit to. First 4 years were actually the nice thing about the Air Force during the Cold, or any branch of the military during the Cold War period, is it really sets you on a path to beat all of the friends of yours who went to college on the Beers of the World Club. So it was just a lot of drinking. I did get to go to Oktoberfest in Munich in '89. That was cool. I was stationed in Sicily and going to a new base in England, and I drove.
Oh wow!
I had a real POS car that was breaking down and physically losing parts along the way. But me and a guy I was driving with, we said Munich, 100 kilometers or whatever it was, and we're both like, it's late September. Oh, Oktoberfest is going on. Let's go.
Let's go.
So that was a good time, apparently.
Apparently. Was it a good time that you remember? It's a good time that you've been told that you had.
No, it was a good time.
Okay.
Meet some people. I mean, Bob Hope came over to do a show at the beginning of the Gulf War. So that was pretty cool. Standing stage left, taking pictures of that.
When did you said you got out in like 2011?
2012.
Okay, so first Gulf War or second Gulf War?
First. Yeah, this was in like 1990. Yeah.
Okay.
God, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Damn. And I got to sit down as tonight is debate night. Met Hillary Clinton in the 90s somewhere. Generals and secretaries of defense, things like that. I did get to do one of the last things I got to do. Did you ever see the movie Red Tails?
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's a Spielberg flick, came out in 2012. And one of the things we got to do, we were having a big symposium in San Antonio in 2012. And they wanted to screen that movie before it actually came out in theaters. So it was like 2 weeks before it was released.
Yeah.
And we worked with the production company, and they let us do it. And so we had like half a dozen original Tuskegee Airmen who were there, and a couple of the guys who were in the movie came out for it. And it was a big deal. We had the letter we got from Spielberg's folks later said that was, over 2,000 people in that theater, was easily the largest initial screening of any movie I've ever done. Right? It's like, that's cool. So you do kind of get to interact sometimes with some of those type of folks, which is kind of neat. And you get to see how the sausage is made, which isn't quite as neat,
Yeah, right.
Because with a newspaper, commanders would have their piece that they would put in the paper, right? Their editorial for the troops, right? I was writing that 19 years old, right? So people say the commander said, it's like, dude, I wrote that. The commander didn't say that.
You're like, yeah, the commander, yeah.
Right, that's exactly what he said. But anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, it gives you a little step up for writing, because you learn how to edit on the fly, right?
There you go.
And to write a fairly clean first draft.
What is that like? Can you tell me what that's like? Because I don't know.
Writing a fairly clean first draft?
Yeah. No.
It's nice. It really is.
It's nice. You should try it.
It doesn't need to be edited, and it doesn't mean that I put out stuff that probably still shouldn't be edited, but it is nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like it seems to me, I said this somewhere else and someone was like, oh no. But like, I feel like as writers kind of advance in their career too, they do tend to write like a cleaner and cleaner first draft. Just, I think, happens as you have more practice with it,
I think that's probably especially true of people who plan it, right? Who plot it out. But I think if you know kind of where you're going with it and you kind of see it happening in your head, then you'll get to a point where you kind of go, oh yeah. And like I've said on Bald and Balding before, my latest book, I got about 40,000 words into it, which was, more than halfway. And I kind of realized this character does not need to be in this book. Right?
Oh, wow.
It was a nice storyline for him and everything, but I had to go through and just take him out. He didn't belong there. So going back to page 1 and finding every time he was in a scene and taking him out and adjusting the dialogue and maybe having to give that dialogue to someone else or, whatever it was, which was a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah. Well done though. It only took us 14 minutes to talk about your book. Good job.
I'm happy not to.
No.
My first book came out, and I rarely talk about them at all, so it's all good.
We are definitely going to be talking about books more, but that's That's crazy. I have like in the book I'm writing like a character that I'm like well into it and I'm still sort of like figuring out this character, but you know uh that's pretty. Yeah, I'm not ready to take him out to the back shed and get rid of that character. Um, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, it's just weird. I'm kind of doing what I do on the other show too. Is I'm looking at all the
Yeah,
comments coming in, and it's kind of hard not to respond to them every now and then.
I am not a professional. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Mike said he's so much better at this than us. It's like, well, he has to
I don't
be.
know
Mike,
who he's talking to.
twice as much.
Maybe he's just talking to like everyone. I guess because like the way he phrased it seems like he's responding to someone. But I don't agree.
Like, it's just
Yeah. That's what it. Yeah. He's like he told ChatGPT beforehand to give a bunch of things that said be nice to say with the name Nicholas, and he's like, okay, the copy paste. Yep, I believe it. I believe
like
it.
he has all this stupid question list. They're all ChatGPT generated.
You know what I liked? I was checking out some of your episodes, and I liked where he asked, like, what would your main character do if they woke up on a frozen lake?
Yeah.
But that was so random, but I really like it. I really like it.
Yeah, that's almost like a good writing prompt, right?
Yeah.
That you could sit there and say, okay, my character's in this situation. What do you do?
Right.
You got 20 minutes to get out of it. What do you? So
yeah, I love that.
With some good ideas. So it's like, you go, boy.
Yeah. So what? Okay, so you were in the Air Force for quite a while. You got out. You thought, maybe I'll do this book writing thing. So I like it. Along the way, you and Mike clearly met, and like even that first episode of Bald and Balding was the two of you hanging out at some con somewhere. So how did you two meet, and how did the idea for Bald was Mike like, bro, let's do this, and you're like, I guess or did you pitch the idea? How did this happen?
Yeah, so we obviously met at a show somewhere, and last year we were at Norfolk or Virginia Beach. I think Virginia Beach. There's like a 2 or 3 day show there, and of course when you go in, set up your booth and everything, you got some downtime, right? And the next morning you go in a couple hour or an hour or two before the doors open, and you've got some downtime. And then when the cosplay contest is going on, you've got downtime, right? So there's just a lot of wasted hours at one of those shows, and we were talking. I said, man, we should do something for all these wasted hours. We could take a camera and go around and talk to some of the vendors, right? And just kind of do a little, not a podcast, but a video kind of YouTube video. Right? Yeah. I had played with a podcast a little bit during COVID, like everybody else. And so we did that, right? We got some microphones and just started talking to people. And Mike goes to a lot more shows than I go to, so he would take video and send it to me, and I would edit it. And we did that for a couple of months. And then we said, let's try to do this live. Let's see what that's like. And after the first one live, we said, oh, this is much easier. This is much less time intensive, and it's just a better product, I think, in the end, because it can go anywhere.
Right.
So we just kept doing it, and I think he's got people scheduled for us now out through August. So we've got people scheduled for like the next couple of months, 2-3 months, and people keep calling us now. He said to me today, he said someone who's actual like traditionally published author reached out and said they wanted to be on the show. So, all right, cool. I don't know if they've watched it or not, but sure, why not? What the hell?
Yeah, they might change their mind after. No, that's good. Yeah. That's funny. Hey, Herman's around too. What's up, Herman? Hey, thanks for dropping in.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Man, that's so wild though, because like my journey has been very similar. Like I started, and I was doing. I wasn't doing it at shows, but I would do like recording, and then I would do some editing, and I'm like, this is lame. Do it live.
It's difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're editing it, you're obligated to go in and put in the closed captioning and all that kind of stuff, and you just a lot of cutting here and cutting there, trying to add little things in. It's just a big time suck.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's not to me. Like, I mean, I know And Herman agrees, editing is the worst part for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, I know some other booktubers that make more like traditional booktube videos, and they enjoy the editing, and like, good for them, you know. But I don't, you know. And like, so to me, this is the fun part, just the chat. And like, if I can strip away the other junk and just have the chat, which is kind of what you get with live, you know.
Do you have a 9 to 5?
I am very good at avoiding a real job.
Okay.
And so I own my own business, and I get other people to do my 9 to 5 work for me.
Nice. So you actually have a little more time you could do that with if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I definitely, like, I am not sitting at a doing work 9 to 5, but I do also have an 11-year-old that's very high energy and a 3-year-old that's, you know, like,
oh yeah.
So, you know, they take some time, you know. We all, man, we just got back from a road trip where we went to go visit my in-laws in Florida. I live in Wilmington, North Carolina. We drove down to Florida. We drove back on like, in like the day that we were going to come back. Well, actually 2 nights before, my little 3-year-old got really sick and just woke up throwing up.
That's a good
And
time.
Right, the night before we were going to come back, she gave it to the rest of us.
Nice.
Like,
and you had to drive 700 miles.
No, we were staying with my in-laws, so we were like, we are not doing this. We're staying another day. We're not going to drive.
They were just like, oh great, yeah, please.
You know, they seem to like us. I think, like, well, at least they like my wife. You know, and they tolerate me. So there's that. You know, running your own business, work any 80 hours you choose. Yeah.
That's right. So what kind of business is it? Or can you say?
Yeah. I'm not a security company or something crazy, you know. No.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I make the short version is I make websites for therapists, mental health therapists. Then that's true, but the longer version, because you're got a little time, and you're stuck here with me. I have 2 businesses, and so one of them like pretty strictly makes websites. The other one, we bundle together a bunch of software for therapists to do their work in a HIPAA compliant way online. So that business was actually founded by a therapist and a businessman like many years ago, but the businessman is
we can
like
still
70.
Hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Oh, really? Did my video stutter?
Your audio is cutting out a little bit too now.
Oh, come on! What a shame.
My daughter's watching on her phone and says I'm the only one who's blurry, so it's just me apparently.
Go, Ro. Yeah, because it's your sleepy camera. Anyway,
You're not just you. I'm just blurry. It's just me.
I see. Yeah. At any rate, yeah, the other business is doing stuff to get therapists to do their work online, and that did pretty well over COVID. So I've been riding those coattails for a while, which over the last like year especially has given me a lot more time to try to write and try to make videos and that sort of thing, which is good. And so maybe someday I'll actually like finish a book.
So if you make websites, do you make websites for authors?
So for a little bit I was like, I should that'd be fun. And then I said to some authors, I was like, hey, I'll do like a lesson on how to build a website for free. And nobody took me up on it. No. I think I
don't want to know how to do it. I just want to give somebody $100 and say, go nuts, or whatever it costs. I have no idea what a website costs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I bet if I charged $100, I might get some takers, but I would not like that work.
Yeah, but you could make just like 5 different websites and change the color palette, and people would be fine with that. I don't care if 20 other people or 100 other people have the same website that I do, because it's not going to have the same content on it. Right?
Yeah.
No, that's what it looks like.
So there's a company in the therapist space that does exactly that, and you know, it's valid. It's definitely a reasonable business model. In fact, like for them, they even have like canned text content. So you could be like, oh, I want to talk about this thing. And they'll be like, cool, here's our generic text about it.
If it works for romance, why couldn't it work for websites?
Hey. Boom. See what you did there. Nice.
Don't send hate mail. It's fine. I totally respect the fact that romance authors are making a lot more money than I'll ever see doing this. That's all.
All right. Did you ever? There was a few years that yeah. This is true.
I have Dollar Tree edition of website design right now, Bo. It's me doing it. Again, I did say I don't know how much they cost. It was just a random number I threw out.
That's fine. So yeah. Speaking of romance authors making more money. Some years ago, the 50 Shades of Grey books were selling tons of money when they were newish.
Yeah.
And that was like the first book series, I think, that like bumped J.K. Rowling off the top of like the New York Times list. And
irony, but okay.
Right. But so someone asked J.K. Rowling about it, and she's like, imagine how many more books I could have sold if Harry had been just a little bit more creative with his wand. How good is that? I love that.
We don't want to go down this road, do we?
It could have been like the beginning of Romantasy, you know? Like
it could have been. He could have.
She could have created Romantasy, but then
an industry in California who's done that whole thing, that whole Harry Potter genre, a lot. Anyway, so Nicholas, who was? We ask this question all the time. Who was the hero of Harry Potter?
Oh, are we? The interesting question. I mean, if you'd said Lord of the Rings, the clear answer is Sam. You know.
You could absolutely make a case for Sam, yeah.
I haven't thought about it so much with the Harry Potter. I mean, clearly at the end, like Neville is sort of the prophesized person, right?
No, he gets rid of one of them.
Yeah, right.
And you could say it was self-defense, really. No, I mean, I've heard people make the Neville argument before, and it's like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to give it a little bit more thought. What's your take on it?
Oh, it's Snape.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
You think? I was wondering if that's where you were gonna go.
Double agent for decades. He had both sides of that. His intentions were pure if misguided. And he
like Mike Sanson better.
Gave them the key to getting it done.
I like Mike Sanson better. Dumbledore.
He was
Snape. Snape. But anyway,
Dumbledore shouldn't have been within 500 yards of the school.
Oh.
And Snape should have, dude. He was a total dick and calling out Harry the whole time just because he had a crush on his mom. Like that is not okay.
Harry was kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, was
he? Yeah.
Tell me what. All right, let's walk me through Harry B. Let's do this. When was Harry an asshole?
He's like kind of got that kind of Luke Skywalker whininess to him,
Okay, like I mean, there's a difference I think between Mike Porter on Instagram says Snape has the fullest arc. Okay, but he thinks Hermione was the hero in most of them, and that was one of the ones that it was kind of coming to my mind.
I could buy that too because she was the only one with an ounce of common sense.
I like how your daughter though was like, "What?" Honestly, like she should be informed.
Yeah. You didn't think you could hear her.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, we talk about this quite a bit on Bald and Balding. The other thing that comes up quite a bit is Sith Lord Jar Jar Binks, and who is the greatest and the least greatest Starfleet captain.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so these are all questions you hadn't considered yet. This is great. We're getting a new perspective.
I mean, I'm a touch younger than you, Ro, which isn't saying much, but
see, I'd be willing to bet more than a touch, but okay.
I kind of grew up with Janeway, so like solid to Janeway, but I feel like it's got to be Picard, And I respect Kirk as an answer, but like I don't know, I feel like Picard has to be the top.
Okay.
What do you think, bro?
How old are you, Nicholas?
I'm just turned 38.
Oh wow.
Ha!
Well, you could be my child, but that means I started really young. I'm more of a. I mean, I prefer Cisco, but Picard is right there at the 1B.
Wow. I mean, Cisco was. Did you and Mike watch Babylon 5?
Mike is a big Babylon 5 guy. I have never watched an episode.
Oh man, well, I feel like you're missing out. I think.
Yeah, but people also say that about Firefly, and I have watched a few episodes of that, and I don't get it.
You don't get. Interesting. When you watched it, did you watch? Because the order that they aired the episodes on the network was screwy. And there's one episode where they actually give you a bunch of backstory, and if you watch that first, then it's like, okay, some of this makes sense. And like I think that's actually the order that they're on in DVDs, but if you watch it in the order that it was aired, then it's like confusing and weird.
It's not a matter of it making sense as a story.
Okay.
It's just a matter of not being a very interesting story. Right? And I know people ready to burn down my house now for having said that. My wife kind of looks at me askance when I say that too. She's kind of a sci-fi nerd as well. You know.
Okay. All right. That's
she's got my daughter hooked on Doctor Who now. It's
I love Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
You don't like Doctor Who? I mean, Doctor Who's
I'm okay with the Matt Smith Doctor Who. I quite like the David Tennant Doctor Who. But you know, other than that, you know.
All right. Well,
it's
Mike
like
has
you got a time machine that can go anywhere in space and time in the universe, and you're always in England. What the hell? You know. I mean, England's not even a very big place on this planet, much alone this universe or the time continuum. Go somewhere else, man.
Quite true though. Like I'm pretty sure they've been to whatever, but like I mean, fair point, I guess. Fair point, but
Scotland and Ireland. Yeah.
Sometimes for one episode.
They went to Wales once.
But truthfully, who would want to go to America or France?
I mean,
anyway.
But I mean, they could have gone to Oktoberfest in Munich, and they're missing that opportunity. You know? Right? Yeah. I get it.
To be fair, we hung out with a lot of Brits while we were there, so I guess
And they were smarter than the doctor. You know, that's what we're saying.
That's right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about books too. How many books have you written at this point? It is.
I've got 9 novels and 2 novellas.
Man. All right. How long does it take you to write a book these days?
Well, you know, if I actually had any kind of willpower to just sit down and write every day, I could actually probably do about 3 a year. The first few years I was doing 2 a year, and now I'm like 1, right? But so my last book came out in early May, and I'm writing a totally different thing in a different world, whole new series now, and I'm going to write on that until the end of August, and then I will pick up with book 4 of my current series until that's finished, and then go back for 6 months to the other one, and just kind of go back and forth like that. I think 1 a year is pretty reasonable and doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can do 2 without too much of a problem if I'm really kind of inspired to sit down and do it. But it's like, oh, shiny. You know, there's always kind of something going on.
Sure.
My daughter will go away to college this fall. Maybe more writing will happen this fall. Who knows? It's not rude. It's just be a lot quieter here.
There's no one here to rib about Doctor Who anymore. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to have to put it into a book, you know?
Right. I just see Clyde's asking, where do you come up with the names of places in your books? This is going to sound really stupid, but it's absolutely true. If I don't have a name, and I generally don't, I will do one of 2 things. I will either go to a name generator and just kind of look at them and see something in it that I like and then modify it. Or, and this is what happens most of the time, I will open a blank page and just mash my keyboard and then just look for little groupings of letters that I like and modify it into something, which is why you can't pronounce them.
Nice. That's hilarious.
It's a horrible method. It's absolutely horrible.
I've been like, my work in progress. I'm like, what is this word in Russian? I'm gonna, because like one particular evil empire has a little bit of influence from them. So I'm like kind of drawing from that just a little bit. But I might just have to steal your method. Just mash on a keyboard and be like, oh yeah, that's it.
I took a bunch of words from Latin in my first series, and then just modified those. If the word, sometimes you put in, it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't give me a fun word or a word that I like at all. So
yeah. So what, I mean, again, you essentially were writing for so many years in the Air Force. Now you've got 9 novels and 2 novellas out. What is hard still in writing for you?
You get to a point, right, when you start out, it's like there's something fresh and new, and you're zooming along and you get about 30,000 words in, and then it's like, oh, okay. Now I know where I want to be, but then you start thinking, okay, I need to ramp this up to get to the climax of the thing. What's going to happen there? So sometimes it's just filling in those little things, right? The one I'm doing now, I just started. I got about 30,000 words into it before I actually had the inciting incident, right? The thing that really is kind of kicking it off.
Right.
And I know that's a lot, but it'll be ended. So now I'm in a point where it's like, okay, I have 2 ideas in my head. Which way am I going to go with it? And then once I do that, what am I going to do? So I think for a pantser, thinking ahead like that is probably a bad idea. Right? Because you're going into space reserved for the plotters, and that's not, although I think a lot of us would probably like to be plotters, we're not for a reason. So yeah, I think just that kind of middle point kind of gets slogged down. But once you get through that, then you're just running downhill to the end, right? And then it's just like, oh yeah, almost done. And then you start thinking about, what am I going to do? What's the cover going to look like?
Nice.
That's for the writing part. I mean, for the book production part, it's everything other than the writing. It's just awful. I've been doing this for 6 years now, right? This is the first time I have ever done anything like this, right? So I've never done advertising or anything like that, and the results are exactly what you would think they would be.
Are you saying I'm like your first interview ever?
Yeah, you really are, actually. I don't know that I've been interviewed by anybody. I've interviewed hundreds of people.
Hundreds.
But I don't think I've ever been interviewed before. So
well, I'm flattered, Ro. I'm glad that Mike found me non-threatening enough to make sure that he booked you for me.
I don't know how flattered you should be. It's still just me. So it's not like you're interviewing Weird Al Yankovic or something. That would be fun.
That would be cool. That'd be who?
Yes.
Seriously?
Dude, Weird Al is a legend. Like, come on.
Thank you. He has Grammys, like 5 of them.
Right? Though, like, I mean, he got beef with Coolio for Amish Paradise. I mean, come on. Like, there's history here, There's, like, yeah. Grammys. So this brings to a different question, but a good question. Is there someone that is sort of like your holy grail guest that like you would absolutely love to have on Bald and Balding? Is it Weird Al?
No, not really. I mean, I don't know if Mike's got anybody. But I think it's really kind of fun working the indie circuit, right? And talking to people who don't have maybe a large audience or a following and all that kind of thing. And if we can be even a tiny part of helping them get that notoriety, then great. That's cool too. That's kind of the whole point of it, right? And we were talking about this a little earlier this week with the proliferation of authors out there now putting out so much stuff.
Hmm.
You're starting to see more of a proliferation of what you do and what Mike and I do, and I think all that's very useful to building that community, and it's a fantastic community because it's not it's the difference between an American cooking show like Hell's Kitchen and the Great British Baking Show, right?
Mm.
In Hell's Kitchen, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat you." And the Great British Baking Show, everybody's just like having tea and inviting each over to each other's flats and just getting along. And it's I'd much rather be a part of that community
Right.
than the other one.
Yeah. Book people are good people. I had on Travis Baldry, who wrote Legends and Lattes. He also is an audiobook narrator, but prior to all that, he was a game developer. And we talked for a little while. I was leaning towards doing game development, and then it ended up being web dev and whatever. But we talked about how that industry is so different, and a lot of it is the not necessarily like the industry and the people in the industry, although that is different too, but also like the fans, and especially the expectations of the fans. Because now, games, the way that they are these days is that people expect them to be evolving and growing over time and in ways that all the fans like. Whereas books, the expectation is totally different. When a book is done, the book is done. And if you didn't like it, worst case scenario, you do like maybe someone leaves a bad review, but it's not like game fans can be real dicks sometimes.
We were talking about that tonight, and getting that first bad review, right? And
That's a rite of passage, I think.
Right. Getting reviews anyway is difficult enough. I just today got my 20th review on my first book, right? 20. And it wasn't even a review; it was just a rating, right? Somebody just hit the star rating. Okay, great, thank you very much. But waiting for that bad review, I just hope it's well written, right? That's all I want is give me a bad review, just make it funny. I can use that to help market it. If it's
true,
that's all I ask. I don't want much.
Right. You're like, okay, all right. I'm gonna use this to say this is who this book is not for.
I would walk a mile to burn this book. It's like, yeah. How many books would you walk a mile for?
Yeah, right. Hashtag goals. That's pretty funny. Let me see here. Oh! I wanted to ask you and Mike, if he's still bumming around in the chat. What is the status of your guys? I guess Mike's group, the Broken Downs that he was starting with JCM Burn. Like, are you going to be a member, Ro?
He hasn't asked me, the bastard. I didn't even know he was doing it. Look at him. Yeah.
Bastard. He was joking that, and I think he said it on the show, so you at least like heard of it. But that was going to be his kind of answer to the break-ins, right?
And I was talking to him about that tonight. It's like, maybe we should just set up a Discord server and we'll limit it to 12 people, right? We'll take in 10 people, but we'll see. He's not into that yet, but a year ago he wasn't into doing this either. So, I told him we don't have to do the follow through. You get the 10 people and say, look, this is the expectation. Don't expect us to be doing a lot.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, you could set up a Discord because you spend 2 hours getting your daughter to set up the Discord server because she's more tech savvy than you are.
Which, again, very low bar.
Right. And then it's done and it's made and you're good to go.
I find Discord very confusing.
I do too.
Well,
you do?
Yeah, I hate Discord.
Okay, excellent.
Dang it, we're out of luck.
Fantasy Feud. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a bunch of people on the show, and we said, well, we should do like a Family Feud thing with them. We call it Fantasy Feud.
Love it.
So Mike put out a poll on Instagram. No, he didn't. On X. Sorry. And with like 15.
You're literally the only person I've ever heard actually refer to it as X rather than like, God, what
Sorry.
What did he buy? So, all right, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
So, and he's got a bunch of questions on it. So go find Mike_Molman and take his quiz. And later in July, we are going to have Fantasy Feud with the Break-Ins versus the Secret Scribes. And if it goes well, maybe we'll do it again with some other folks. Yeah.
So this is I'll retweet it after the show. Perfect. Thank you, Mike. So this is the first time you've done the Fantasy Feud idea?
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things that kind of came up in conversation on the show, and we said, yeah, we could do that. That'd be fun.
I like it. Do you know like how many like questions you're gonna ask? I did look briefly at the thing, and I saw that there were like different fantasy categories.
Yeah, are you in the break-ins?
Yeah, and I like almost feel embarrassed about it because like I'm gonna be the last to have a book out. But like, yes.
Oh, Mike says you're the captain for the Fantasy Feud. So.
Dang it! All right. I guess like I'm getting nominated. Cool. Thanks, Mike.
So I'll get my best Steve Harvey mustache, and we'll.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Have you? Yeah, go ahead. Who do you any idea who's going to be the captain from the Secret Scribes? Like, I know
we can't tell you
they're
that.
around.
That'd be like a giveaway.
All right.
Too much information for you. No, I don't forget it.
It's top secret.
TJ Terrell, he said.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, Mike. I'm looking forward to it. And I definitely am.
I want to. I don't have that option here. Clyde said that he met me in Virginia where he got my set of books. Clyde, thank you very much. I hope you like them. If you haven't left a review, please do that. That's awesome. We love reviews.
There you go.
Reviews, people buying the books and reviews, I'd almost rather give the book away if I knew I was going to get a review out of it, an honest review. I'm not sucking up for fives here. But as you bought the whole set, I hope it would be a decent review.
You mentioned earlier that you haven't really done any marketing. Have you gotten your books out to different reviewers, or not? Haven't really spent time doing that.
I never really. This whole kind of. I've never been a real big social media kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't have had any social media accounts if I didn't do what I do for work.
Are you talking about the writing, or are you talking about the Air Force work, the communications work?
No, the communications work. I mean, Air Force is so long ago now that doesn't matter. But I've been like a communications manager for a couple places in higher education. Now I work for the government.
And they want you to have social media? What, like LinkedIn?
Well, no, but you run their social media accounts.
Right. Okay.
Communications manager, right? So you generally have that stuff. So yeah, just in the last year or so doing this, finding out that this whole kind of microcosm exists, So
yeah,
when the book I'm writing now, which I'm tentatively calling the Sigil of Enderune, when that comes out, I will probably take more time with it and try to do it properly. And I'm bet that will make a difference in the fact that, it'll be my 9, 10, 11th, 12th book or something should also hopefully mean it's a better book. I like to think. I like to think the one I just put out in May is the best one I've written. I certainly like it the most, but that means nothing. Authors are careful judges of their own work sometimes. So.
Hopefully we get better at this craft as we do more and more of it, right? I try to. Yeah. How much do you kind of? Do you have a? Well, okay. I want to talk about your process a little bit because it sounds like clearly you're a pantser. So, and I've heard before that someone a lot smarter than me said that the difference between pantsers and plotters is where you put your planning time. Because if you're a plotter, you'll plan it ahead of time, and then when you're drafting, you know where you're going. If you're a pantser, you're figuring it out while you draft, but then you have to spend time on the back end making it seem like you had a plan the whole time, right? So first, do you agree with that?
You kind of have to agree with it, right? So when I wrote my first book, this thing,
ta-da! Nice,
right? It was work as part of the project for my master's. And then
Oh, cool.
after that, I finished it up and said, "Oh, that was fun," right? And I didn't
Yeah.
really think of it as being a series. I put one line in there about this sword, and I just did it as kind of like backstory filler, right? Kind of bumping up the world, blah blah blah. That sword is this, right? So then, as I was writing this, it's like, okay, I know where they're going to go next. In my third book, I'd always want. Have you ever read Dante's Inferno?
No, not like
You
cover to
know,
cover, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
love that book. It's a great book, and I always kind of wanted to do a take of that. So that's what book 3 is, right? And so if I was to go back and redo these 6 books, I wouldn't do it as a 6-book series. I would do it as 2 trilogies, because there's a very after book 3, the initial antagonist finishes, right? He has his arc, and it actually ties up pretty nicely. But that's kind of the beauty of pantsing, right? When you can put all that together and go, "Oh, that worked really well," and I was not planning that. But it did work out very nicely. And then book 4 through 6 pick up a different antagonist, who gets mentioned in book 3, right? So there's a kind of a passing of the baton between the two.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know that you would necessarily get some of that. I couldn't have planned it that way, right? And I did try to plan one of the books, and it lasted about 3 chapters. And then it was off to the races, and all of the notes were, it's like, okay, just put that out there, because you don't, sometimes you don't know what your characters are going to do, and they will do dumb shit. You know?
That's, I think, like as a reader perspective, I really actually enjoy that when characters, like, you're kind of deeply invested in a character, but they make a decision that's totally consistent for the character, but you're like, why? You know?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And that's what happened to me in book 4. Is I had this character who was actually, I named him for a friend of mine growing up, right? And then I told him, it's like, "Oh, I've got this character named after you, blah 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 blah." And the dude dies, and it's like, shit, I didn't want him to die, you know. And then I looked at it, and I looked at all the stuff leading up to it, and said, "Yeah, that's perfectly legitimate. All of that is very likely, right? Just based on the circumstances of what was going on at the time."
Meanwhile, your friend's like, what the fuck? Like,
Well, that's what I told him. I had to write to him and say, "Man, I'm sorry, but yeah, you just ate it. It wasn't intentional, but you did a dumb thing." So,
you did a bad. No, you did.
but
Sorry.
and sometimes you kind of run into those things when you're just kind of freewheeling it, and
Yeah.
you find something that's like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. I'm going to run with this," and you wouldn't have had that. But there's give and take on both ways, and I think ultimately it doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable writing with, do what works for you. There's one's not better inherently than the other.
Sure.
One is more organized than the other, right? That's definitely. But I've never been accused of being organized.
I am rarely accused of such a travesty.
No.
I'm trying to see who said this. Da Vinci, apparently, said art is never finished, only abandoned. So with that thought in mind, do you find, like, with your, and kind of going back to what we're talking about too, about how, hopefully kind of the next work is better as we get better at the craft. Is there a point where you're like, all right, I need to be done? Or do you kind of, when you're in your editing process, do you work on it and work on it and work on it and work on it until you cannot figure out how to do anything that would make the thing better?
Oh, hell no.
No.
And I think working on a weekly newspaper for so long really helps you put things away, right? So it would just be like, stuff would come in, you put it together, you make your page, you get the newspaper done, it comes out on Friday, all of that stuff, throw it off to the side, you got a new week coming in, and you're working, right?
Yeah.
And you just know that there are some things like, look, I could sit here and spend another year on this, And is it going to make it so much better that it's the pain to glory ratio, right? How much pain versus how much glory? I could spend a year's worth of pain and I'm only going to get a little bit extra out of it. It's not worth that, right? I'm sure you have some purists who would sit there and go, no, you've got to get and they write poetry, and that's great.
Yeah, right.
But they're not writing fantasy fiction. And that, we were talking about earlier, the people who read this stuff. Fantasy, I think, is mostly the target market for fantasy is middle-aged women. And if you go to comic book shows and stuff, if you see a family walking up by your booth, you can kind of tell that get mom over here, and there's your best chance to sell a book. Or if it's dad buying something for her, right? If she looks at it and they don't do it, sometimes you catch the guy's eye and say, come on back. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, but it's rarely the same kids who are buying anime or anything like that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always, like, I'm just old enough where things like the Marvel movies were not out when I was in high school, so like being a nerd was still not cool. But like, a thing, they were not out, Ro. They were not, like,
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. But like these days, being a nerd is cool, and it for regardless, I think, of gender. But there was definitely a time where, like, the fantasy nerdy stuff to me felt very like a nerdy dude. But I probably need to rethink about who the target or the main audience is. That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, so the series I'm currently working on, Ranger's Deck, which this is in BBNY, which is a contest I know nothing about, and good luck finding any information on it. I have no idea what's going on with it, but it's there's like a tarot kind of segment to it, right? They're called something else. It's called the Pecrame, which is a takeoff a Latin word, like we were talking about earlier. The guy, that's Ranger, who can change into a small black dragon, gets a bunch of cards dealt to him. And when I started this series, it was going to be an 11-book series, right? And I had an index card. My planning was one index card for each book.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he got 11 of these cards, right? And 10 of the cards were blank, and only one card had a picture. And so that's the picture on the cover of the book, by artist Matt Slay from Lynchburg, Virginia, by the way.
Nice. Love it.
About partway through book 2, I realized, this does not need to be an 11-book series, right? I can do this in 5. I could probably do it in 3. I could have done it in 3, but
go ahead, but I'm going to challenge you on that later.
Well, anyway, the point we were just talking about. So this is my latest book, The Sprite. Yeah. This book was written largely with that audience in mind, because hopefully I'm not giving away too much. The main character, the Ranger, is out of commission, right? He has something happening where he can't go do book things, right? He can't go do hero things. So his wife, who is no slouch of a fighter in her own right, and they're a family with kids, right? She goes out and does it. So it's kind of a women's book, right? Because the Sprite is female, and so it's also her just not being a housewife taking care of the kids, right? So there's a little bit of that thought in there too. But I just thought that would be kind of fun for some people to see that dynamic in a fantasy series that you never generally get to see.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you is so clearly married couple? Like, what age are the couple in the book?
At this point, They are in their 30s.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's so many heroes that are so young, and I guess it's done because that gives a point of relatability for like people of lots of ages, because everyone that's old was young, and if you're young, then you're close to the younger person. But I think that I'd be interested to see more and more stories with kind of older heroes, and particularly too like heroes that are parents. I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic that's not as explored as it could be. Have you read one? I think it's Primal Function by JCM Byrne.
I do not read anywhere near enough.
I get you, and I'm the same way. And there's so much good media out there; it's hard to read all of it. I'll mention one more though. Have you read
I guarantee I have.
You haven't? No.
The last book I read was Jacqueline Hagen's Wickwire Watch.
I don't think I've heard that one.
It's actually quite good. I listened to it, right? She
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a pretty stunning deal. And I have read this year The Dryad's Crown. Oh, I just lost the dude's name. Anyway, look up Dryad's Crown.
Oh, I'm checking him out.
I think it's Dave Hopkins. I think it's who it is. And that's really good as well. He did that as a series of like 10 novellas or 10 very small books, and he kind of packaged it all together into one thing. There are bits of it that I'm not jazzed about, right? I think there are a couple bits of it that I think are just kind of slow, but as an overall series, it's very good. And you finish up and you go, "There's more, right?" And it's like, "Oh no, that's where it ended." Oh my god, I was hoping for one more section of this,
Yeah. So EL says use young characters because you have to teach them. It's hard to write old characters who already know everything. Then the fair, I totally see where you're coming from, but I still think there's something there may be opportunities there to kind of tell stories in different ways that might be interesting to someone that is a little bit older and has a different point of view. In the Partial Function by JCM Byrne, the main character his tagline on Amazon is "If Taken starred Michelle Yeoh and was set on Jurassic Park." It's that it's Taken, so a mother's trying to go get her kids, but it's some of there's monsters that are sort of dinosaurs, and she's this crazy martial arts badass, and it's fun, but obviously that story just doesn't work if the main character is 16. You know what I mean? She can't have kids,
I think in a typical fantasy medieval world, it's pretty easy to have people who don't know everything as well. So my main character for Ranger's deck is a guy named Miragon, and his parents actually play a fairly significant part in my first series, right? And I think part of the reason it works for this is because that first series introduces magic into a world, right? Because every fantasy series you read, it has magic baked into it from page one. And I'd always kind of wondered, who was the first person to use magic? Because there had to have been a first person. So that's what Magic's Genesis does, is it introduces magic in chapter 2 or 3 to two people who have to figure it out as they go. And then it just starts to slowly expand across this particular world until it becomes more normal, like every other fantasy world, right? People just accept there is magic in the world, and some people can harness it and some people cannot. So Miragon's parents were two of those people who had the ability and the requisite stone of power to do that. So now their offspring are kind of carrying that on. He's a triplet, but not that matters.
That sounds interesting, man. I so you got a little bit of a pitch there for like a few of the different books, which is nice. They're sounding pretty interesting. You're doing a good job selling them, Ro.
Well, I mean, it's all the same world, so it's a little overwhelming, I think, sometimes for people to
Okay.
go, oh, a 6-book series followed by a 5-book series. That's what I need is 11 books in my house, which is why the one I'm working on right now is entirely different, just to give people a different access point if they just want to start with one.
Like I struggle with that with Brandon Sanderson. Everyone's on the Brandon Sanderson hype train, and like I read Mistborn and I thought it was good, but it didn't like completely knock my socks off, you know. And I'm like, how many more books are there to read? Like, oh my god! And of course, he keeps putting out more. I do want to get to Stormlight Archive though, but obviously, I'm not like I haven't read any of them. There's no way I can catch up before his like 5th one comes out later this year. Dude's a machine. He's a machine.
I think when you reach that point where you can dedicate yourself, 10 hours a day to it, it's like I told my wife, I said, if I could sit here and do this 10 hours a day, even if it was only 2 hours a day writing, where that was my job, I don't think it would be a problem to put out 3 or 4 books a year. But
see, like, I respect that. I don't think even with 10 hours a day I could do it. I really don't. But
if it was your job, right, where you said, okay, I'm at my desk, this is now what I do to pay the rent. I think then you could get it in your head a little bit more easily and say, I need to spend 2 hours writing, an hour doing my social media stuff or whatever, a couple hours doing my marketing things or whatever, an hour plan, break it up into whatever you need to break it up to do it, an hour for learning, listening to podcasts, whatever that's going to be, etc.
That's actually a really interesting point in that, like, I don't make money currently on anything I do that's writing related. This doesn't make money, like, which is fine. This is for fun.
These YouTube channels are killing it, aren't they?
right. I mean, like Daniel B. Green makes some money with his YouTube channel, but I ain't Daniel B. Green. You know what I'm saying?
How many subs does he have?
Like more than 500,000.
Yeah, see, that'll do it.
Yeah, it works. And plus, and he's written some books, and he's got a Patreon that's making some money, and he does like merch drops every once in a while, which are legitimately kind of cool. So he's making a little bit of money. But that like, so I'm kind of always in the mindset of like, this doesn't make money, but maybe it would be a little bit different for me if like, because I know Sanderson talked at one point on, I think it was Intentionally Blank, his little podcast he does with Dan Wells. We talked about how his agent asked him to do speaking engagements, and he was like, no, I don't want to do it. And his agent kept pushing him, and he's like, just name your price. And like, and he said, well, a day of writing for me is like a $10,000 day. So if I'm going to do a speaking engagement, then, to make it worthwhile and to make it kind of compensate for the loss of writing time, there's got to be the day of the engagement and then travel. And I'm going to add like 2 more. So it's going to be $50,000. And right. And somebody paid him $50,000 to go do it. And he's like, nah, cancel it. I don't feel like I have $50,000 worth of something to say. And the agent was like, but they do.
Yeah, right.
Which is fair. But anyway,
I think that would be an ideal way to make a living. I would absolutely love doing that.
Really? Like the going around and talk speaking engagements would be your jam?
Traveling so much, but speaking engagements, because it's a very limited duration. If someone has hired you to be there, it means they want you to be there. So they want you to succeed. So they're looking at you already. They're giving you every benefit of the doubt, right? That A, you know what you're talking about. B, maybe you're a little bit funny. C, that this is going to be worth it to them. And unless you just totally screw it up, right?
Yeah.
That would be a great way to make a buck.
Well, all you got to do is write the Cosmere, and then you could have that. There you go. Easy peasy, right?
Get right on that.
Yeah. Get yourself a nice, $33 million Kickstarter fund going, and suddenly they'll be banging on your door. Yeah. Easy.
Well, Mike, come on, man. We got to get above 500 subs is no good, man. We need 50,000. Let's go. There it is.
All right. I think that's going to be a fun place to actually wrap things up, bro. We've been talking for more than an hour, which has been absolutely lovely. The time has flown by. Thank you for joining me. Where can people find and follow you online, sir?
Oh my God, you asked me that.
Yes.
RosaireBushey.com is my website. I am on X at RoBushey, RoBushey. Of course, Bald and Balding. You can always find me there a couple times a week. And I think I have the one with the pictures.
Instagram.
That's the one. I think I have one of those. I think it's Rosaire Bushey.
Nice.
That's how you spell my name. So, yeah.
All right.
And,
Mike
and
says,
thanks for letting me come on. This has been great.
my pleasure.
Mike and his bloody head tattoos. So I'm contractually obligated to say that if we can get 500 subs on Bald and Balding by the end of this year, Mike will have a little dude with a sigh, right, tattooed on his head.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'm on board with making this happen.
Have your family members go to the site and click the little button that says subscribe.
Yep.
And, we just want to see Mike get poked in the head a bunch of times.
We just need to.
Come on now, that's all we really want.
I like. But if this happens, you need to film it. You know that's your obligation, right? Okay, good.
And I was talking to him that we should probably do a live from the tattoo parlor.
That would be amazing. Yeah. I bet the tattooist would be down,
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
I appreciate you giving me some of your time, man.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for being here. You've been a lot of fun. Thanks to everyone else for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Watching us rather than the other Bald and Balding that you could have been watching.
Those other guys, what are they going to talk about?
Yeah, the same stuff we've been hearing for 4 years at least, right? And to everyone and you, Ro, if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend.